Welcome to the webinar. My name is Brian Welker, and I'm a Principal Product Manager with the Amazon RDS team. Today's talk is about optimizing MySQL for your production workloads in the AWS cloud. And we're going to show you 10 great hacks for your MySQL database that you can use when deploying your production workload. But first, a little bit about MySQL. While most developers are familiar with MySQL, here's a quick summary for those of you who might be new to the world of open source databases. First version of MySQL Server was created in 1995 by the Swedish company MySQL AB, and they later released it as an open source project in 2000. And since then, MySQL has become the most widely used open source relational database. MySQL is the primary relational database for many popular websites and applications and commercial products. And it covers a lot of use cases, including mission-critical applications, websites, and is an embedded database for appliances. And the reasons that MySQL has been so popular over the years includes things like ease of use for developers, high performance. MySQL has a fully reliable transactional engine called NODB, has broad support for almost every programming language, and has a robust set of security controls, including encryption in rest and encryption in transit. So once you've got a MySQL-based application and you want to run it in the AWS cloud, you've got two primary options. Your first option is to run it as a self-managed database on Amazon EC2. And the second is that you can run your database as an AWS managed database service, such as Amazon RDS or Amazon Aurora. And we'll cover both of these in detail. You can think about these options as a spectrum. On one hand, you've got control, and on the other end of the spectrum, you've got automation. So if you're running your MySQL database on an EC2 server, you can actually run it on the same server as your application, or you could run it on a separate database server. But in either case, you've got full control over the parameters of the server, the operating system, the database configuration. You can get onto the database server via remote shell. You can install third-party applications. However, you're also responsible for things like upgrades and backups, security, networking. All of that's up to you. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, you've got an AWS open source database like RDS for MySQL or MariaDB, or a cloud native database engine like Amazon Aurora. Now, on this end of the spectrum, your database is a managed service, so you can easily automate all of the operations. You can clone it, you can scale it. Now, there's no access to the host directly, so you go through the AWS APIs. All the operating system, database upgrades, backups, and they're all provided as a service. Now you've got a few choices for MySQL engines in AWS on the managed side. You've got MySQL Community Edition, that's the standard MySQL. You've got MariaDB, which is a popular fork of MySQL that has broad community support. Or you've got Amazon Aurora, which is the fastest performance MySQL compatible engine in AWS. So if you go down the path of choosing Amazon RDS for MySQL, you can use version 5.5, 5.6, or 5.7. You can choose between the NODB and MyISAM storage engines. Now, if you're interested in using the latest features, you can take advantage of 5.7, including support for features like JSON optimizer, query optimizer improvements, geospatial extensions, dynamic buffer pool resizing. So a lot of nice new features in 5.7. Now, version 8.0 was recently released for Community Edition, and that will be coming soon to Amazon RDS. As I mentioned, another popular version of MySQL is MariaDB. It was created by the original founders of MySQL. And within Amazon RDS, you can launch version 10.0, 10.1, or 10.2. Now, the pricing for MariaDB is exactly the same instance types, the same regions, everything's the same as RDS for MySQL, and then both are eligible for the AWS free tier. There are a couple of differences with MySQL. One is that MariaDB supports thread pooling for high concurrency applications. It also has global transaction identifiers, which make replication more reliable. We recently released support for version 10.2, some nice new features in that version, including window functions for statistical analysis, spatial indices, JSON functions if you're using JSON data types, and something called common table expressions, which makes complex queries easy to execute. And the third option for running your MySQL database in AWS in a managed environment is Amazon Aurora. Now, Amazon Aurora, although it's based on MySQL, it was really built from the ground up to leverage the AWS infrastructure. Aurora comes in both MySQL 5.6 and 5.7 compatible versions. And some applications will see up to 5x better performance on the exact same hardware. Amazon Aurora is also very scalable in that you can get up to 64 terabytes automatically in a single database, and you can have up to 15 low latency read replicas to share your read workload. The storage is highly available and fault tolerant. It actually replicates your data 6 ways across 3 availability zones or AWS data centers. Encryption is built in, and you can integrate with AWS services like AWS Lambda right from the database. Now that we've reviewed the options for running your MySQL database in a managed environment in AWS, let's talk about some great tips for deploying your applications. Our first hack is being able to scale the compute and storage for your MySQL database. Now, unlike an on-premises database, you're not stuck with one hardware configuration in Amazon RDS. You can scale compute up and down to handle increased load or down to save costs of your instance. And RDS makes it easy for you to do this with just a few clicks of mouse or an API call. There's over 25 instances types that you can choose from that fit your workload. You can go from as little as 1 vCPU and 1 gigabyte of RAM up to 64 vCPUs and half a terabyte of RAM. RDS makes it easy by having minimal disruption for your compute scaling. There's just a little bit of interruption, and then your application can resume. Now on the storage side, RDS also makes it easy for you to scale. You can scale up to 16 terabytes of EBS storage for Amazon RDS for MySQL and MariaDB. If you're using Amazon Aurora, it automatically scales up to 64 terabytes of storage. Now there's no downtime for storage scaling, so your application will continue to run. Our second hack is to leverage the automated backups within Amazon RDS. RDS makes it really easy for you to back up your MySQL database. You simply turn on automated backups, and you tell the time that you'd like the daily backup to happen. Now, there's no disruption to your application when this is happening, and you get the automated backup each day and transaction logs every 5 minutes. And what this means is that you can do a point-in-time recovery to any period during the day. Now, since it's a managed service, you get all the monitoring of the backups to make sure they've completed successfully and on time. And you can pick how long you'd like to retain your automated backups, up to 35 days. Now, there's no impact on database performance while backups are happening. And in fact, when you're running in multi-AZ configuration, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, the backups are taken from the standby. Our third hack is getting your data into Amazon RDS. And the easiest way to do that is actually restore a backup into RDS. And the way you do this is that you create a incremental or full backup using a tool called Percona Extra Backup. This is a tool that you can download and install it on either your on-premises system or a system running in EC2. Once you've completed the backup, you take the backup files and upload them to an S3 bucket and provide access via an IAM role, an Identity Access and Management role, to that S3 bucket. And then you initiate a restore on RDS for MySQL or Amazon Aurora and point to that bucket. And depending on the data size, then it will rehydrate your MySQL database in Amazon RDS or Amazon Aurora. Now, if this is a long process, if you have a lot of data, then you might want to use replication to catch up the changes in the existing database into your Amazon RDS database instance. Our fourth hack is enabling multi-AZ configuration for your database. Now, multi-AZ provides enhanced availability and durability for your MySQL database, and it really makes it a fit for production database workloads. Now, when you provision a multi-AZ database instance, RDS synchronously replicates the data to a standby in a different availability zone. Now, each availability zone runs on distinct independent infrastructure. And in case of a failure, RDS automatically will fail over to the standby so that you can reduce database operations. At the same time, it will also create a new standby so that you have that full availability. From an application point of view, redirection to the new primary is through a DNS change. The endpoint for your instance remains the same even after the failover. So this high availability really comes to you at just a few clicks in the AWS console. Hack number 5 is creating read replicas for your database. Now, RDS makes it really easy to create a read replica of your MySQL database and keeps it in sync with the master. Read replicas are useful for both read scaling, so if you want enhanced read capacity, as well as some disaster recovery cases. So for example, you can add read replicas to handle workloads so your master database doesn't become overloaded. You can also place your read replica in a different AWS region, and this gives you the ability to have that data closer to a particular application. Finally, a read replica can give you another ability for a failover when there's a problem with the master, and that gives you cross-region coverage in event of an infrastructure problem. With Amazon Aurora, you actually get up to 15 low latency read replicas. And with Amazon Aurora, you can use these replicas for both read scaling and high availability with very little cost. Our hack number 6 is securing your Amazon RDS MySQL database with Amazon VPC. Now, with some cloud providers, you're forced to run your MySQL database at a lower level of security than you might have on premises. And that's why you can use Amazon Virtual Private Cloud with Amazon RDS. Now, Amazon VPC gives you the same level of control over your virtual networking environment that you have in an on-premise environment. And how this works is through the use of VPC security groups. Think of those as a network firewall for your database server. And you can specify a set of access rules for every database. And a rule is a protocol and a port range that allow you to say who can access your database. You can say a specific IP address or a block of IP addresses or another security group. You can also choose whether or not your MySQL database is available via the public internet. For example, you might want to have an administrative access to that database via your local network. Or you can lock it down and only make it available within your VPC. Hack number 7 is turning on encryption for the data in your MySQL database. Now, RDS provides automatic encryption of data at rest using the AWS Key Management Service, or KMS. Now, KMS is a managed service that provides you the ability to create and manage encryption keys and then encrypt the data using those keys. RDS uses what we call a two-tiered key hierarchy. So we encrypt the data with a unique key, and then we use a master key to encrypt that key. And this means that things like key rotation don't have any impact on performance. Limits the risk of a single compromised key, gets better performance for encrypting large amounts of data. KMS also gives you centralized access to all of key activity. So you can fully audit any access to your KMS keys. KMS also uses AES 256 encryption to protect the data that's stored in the volumes that your RDS instance is running on. Once your MySQL database is up and running in Amazon RDS, you'll want to keep it running by leveraging hack number 8, built-in monitoring. You get a couple levels within Amazon RDS. At the first level, CloudWatch metrics, you get 15 to 18 monitoring metrics automatically available at no charge to you. And you can view these metrics in either the RDS console or the CloudWatch console or via the CloudWatch APIs. You can keep an eye on metrics like CPU utilization, memory, storage, latency. You can see multiple graphs, or you can pull them into your own monitoring tool or a third-party monitoring tool. Now, for even more monitoring, RDS provides what's called enhanced monitoring, and this has over 50 additional metrics. When you enable enhanced monitoring, you can define the granularity all the way down to a single second of granularity. Amazon CloudWatch alarms also allow you to trigger actions based on specific metric values. So you can have triggers, notifications if certain metrics exceed a certain level. So let's say CPU utilization is above 80%. And all of this is available through the standard AWS APIs and integration with third-party monitoring tools. While CloudWatch and Enhanced Monitoring help you manage your server infrastructure, there's sometimes you want to look inside your database to help troubleshoot performance issues. And that's why hack number 9 is enabling RDS Performance Insights. RDS Performance Insights offers an easy to understand dashboard that really helps you take a look at what's going on inside your database. And even non-experts can quickly take a look and seeing whether there are any performance bottlenecks in their database workloads and where they should take an action. So if you're seeing one query taking up all of your CPU time in the database, you might want to go troubleshoot that query and see if you can make it faster. They have an adjustable time frame with Performance Insights, so you can look back an hour, you can look back over the day, the week, or even longer. Doesn't require any configuration or maintenance. You simply turn it on in the RDS console. Our final hack is number 10, publishing your logs to CloudWatch Logs. This is a new feature that we introduced earlier this year, and it allows you to consolidate all your MySQL database logs into a single place, called CloudWatch Logs. And these logs are published in real time, so you can access them immediately. You can also set up CloudWatch alarms so that you can look for specific patterns within the logs. So for example, you could look for repeated failed login attempts. Now for MySQL, the supported logs are the general log, the slow query log, the audit log, and the error log. CloudWatch Logs also allows you to specify a retention period for how long you'd like to keep the logs around. You can also export those to an Amazon S3 bucket for further analysis. Now I couldn't resist giving you a bonus hack, and that's enabling the audit plugin. Now the audit plugin for MySQL, MariaDB, and Amazon Aurora provide a way to log all the events in your database, including logins, queries, tables accessed. The audit plugin also allows you to include or exclude individual users from that audit. The audit's supported on the latest versions of Amazon RDS for MySQL, MariaDB, and Amazon Aurora, and you turn it on via an RDS option group. Now, if you do turn on full logging of all database queries, it could have an impact on server performance. So we do recommend that you test that out before enabling it on your production systems. If you're running your MySQL database in Amazon RDS, you're not alone. Hundreds of thousands of customers across all industries and all sizes use Amazon RDS every day to take the pain out of running their relational databases. And here's a few that you might recognize. If you'd like to learn more about Amazon RDS, please visit us at aws.amazon.com/RDS. And with that, we'll move to the Q&A. Thank you.